and available to view on the Council's website, and could I ask IT colleagues to start the recording. Is it Aileen?
Yeah.
Call for the, if you'd like to call for the sender, and any apologies.
Morning, members. If you could confirm your attendance when I call your names. Councillor Reid.
Here.
Councillor McMahon.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor McFadden.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Kibben.
Here.
Councillor Linton.
Here.
Councillor Barton.
Here, Aileen, thanks.
Councillor Douglas.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Ingram.
Here, thanks, Aileen.
Councillor Maitland.
Here.
Councillor Mabin.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Filson.
Here.
Dr David Lewis.
Here.
Reverend Harriet Johnson.
Here, thanks.
Babs Mabbitt.
Here, thank you.
Hazel Malacotti.
Yes, thanks.
And John Temple.
Okay, item one, that's a declaration of interest. I'm not aware there's anything obvious. No. If that's the case, no declarations. Go straight on to item 2E, which is education catering, and Andrew Kennedy will present the paper. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out an update on the education catering provision and asks to agree recommendations to support operational efficiency and service change. As members are aware, school meal service has undergone significant transformation over the past 20 years, with national support, legislative change and ongoing investment to provide fresh, nutritious food to our young people. This year, the Council is committed to further supporting the provision of school meals with the continuation of the half-price meal deal in secondary schools and extending free school meals to all P6 and P7 young people. This further extends the commitment of the Scottish Government and previous Council decisions for free school meals. The Council has also agreed changes to early years and the leisure review, which is changing the profile of the Council's catering service and strengthening its focus on education catering, recognising that on a daily basis the service will be providing over 12,000 meals per day. From paragraph 6, the scale and complexity of the service is outlined, with 93 service locations, over 350 staff and a budget of over £8 million. In recognition and reflecting the value of the service to the wider aims and objectives of the Council and the Community Plan, paragraph 11 sets out the key values for improving the service and ensuring we continue to maximise the impact of this investment. More young people eating healthy food, supporting local procurement, developing food and catering skills, and providing an efficient and sustainable and resilient service. The education catering service links to a wide range of national policies and priorities, and as well as local objectives. Paragraph 12 to 22 sets out this context and in particular reflects the focus and impact on the demographics of East Ayrshire and the targeted benefits of the half-price school meal initiative. We continue to pride ourselves in the standards and quality of the catering provided in East Ayrshire and the dedication and skills of the workforce working in our schools every day. Paragraphs 23 to 38 gives a flavour of the overall performance of the service. Uptake has increased to above the Scottish average, with significant improvement in secondary schools, although we continue to work with individual schools to focus on further local improvements. We listen to parents and pupils where feedback remains strong and some really positive messages, although menus based on the nutritional standards are not seen as everyone's choice. Unfortunately, not all areas are increasing, with changes in early years seeing a reduction in meal numbers and therefore requiring a change in how best we can continue to manage a cost-effective service. We continue to benchmark our productivity, and although we have seen costs increase by over 35% in 2 years due to food inflation and wage increases, increased meal numbers are now beginning to improve the cost per meal value, and I expect in 24-25 figures to see further improvement than what's presented in the report from the previous year. To achieve this, we have looked at a wide range of food cost issues, suppliers, product choices and menus, as well as the overall production and service model. And with further efficiencies set out in the budget this year, we'll continue to maximise that operational efficiency. We know parents, young people and education colleagues value the school food service, and a real strength in East Ayrshire is the engagement and support across all stakeholders. Recognising the links to the curriculum, the school environment and engagement with pupils and parents remains critical to ensuring young people benefit from the service offered. Paragraph 40 to 65 sets out this relationship and further positive messages of our approach. As noted, the service also supports and impacts wider agendas, including anti-poverty and economic growth. Paragraph 63 to 74 sets out the added value to the local supply chain and further sensitive and dignified support to families. So, managing this complex and the extensive scale of catering operations has significant challenges, and adapting to ongoing change is delivered by a professional and dedicated team. Paragraph 75 to 86 sets out the areas of focus for the service to adapt to these changes from August 2025 and to build capacity to strengthen our preparedness going forward. Utilising financial support provided by the Scottish Government, in addition to the Council's ongoing revenue commitments, we will continue to focus on efficient production models, target and engage with individual schools, strengthen the logistics and efficiency of our transport and delivery operation, enhance our support for food safety and allergies, invest further in food education and menu development, and continue to prioritise investment with local suppliers. The implications are set out in the report, and wanted to just give a kind of fly through that, but appreciate there may be questions, so happy to take any further question or comment. Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. Graham.
Thanks, Leader. And this is a huge paper, and thanks very much for bringing it to Cabinet. I mean, you said yourself, it highlights the scale and complexity. Delivering the school meal service across the whole authority. It's basically a £10.7 million business, delivering high quality nutritious food, recognised with the Food for Life Gold Standard Award. I think it's the only one in the country. So we've also got added benefits, spending £1.5 million in local food procurement. As we all know, the Ayrshire local food is the best. Delighted to see that we're expanding the free school meals to primary 6 and 7. It's something I've been passionate about, and I'm absolutely delighted that the team could deliver that. It's very welcome. So that's everyday P1, P7 free school meals, and we're also continuing the half-price meal deal for our secondaries. I mean, it's great to see the uptake in school meals over the past few years, but obviously we know it puts an increased demand on the service. So it's good to see that investment in our main caring hubs. And the idea of the kind of hub and spoke model for delivery, I think that's a good route to go down. So welcome that. But I think it's really important to recognise that none of this could happen without our catering staff. I said I've been quite a few school visits recently, and the passion and commitment for the staff is second to none in delivering that service. Recently went to Loudon Academy, and I was talking to Marie, she's a supervisor there. We had a great chat. I was there with Councillor Cowan. We went to experience the dining experience that the pupils get. And talking to Marie, it turns out that she was actually working in the kitchen when I was there in the mid-1980s, 40 years of service. So I'm actually beginning to think Marie's got some fountain of youth hidden somewhere. So it was great to see. I mean, 40 years of service, amazing. I think the two posts you're talking about, Andrew, you talked about Natasha's law. That's one thing that came across loud and clear for the catering staff, is the fact that they're having to deal with an increase in these allergies, and its importance in making sure that our young people get safe food. So I think that's a great appointment. And obviously, we can see for the facts and figures in the report that the kids are looking for a wee bit more choice. So that appointment as well, to look at that menu and work that angle is welcome. So thanks for bringing the paper, Andrew. Thanks.
Thanks, Graham. And as in particular the primary 6 sounds, I know first time from the consumers that it's been well received. And there's always that, and Andrew's well aware that in terms of the quality, It's absolutely excellent in the range. I know that matters a lot, and maybe that's one of the reasons why the uptake has gone up. So it's a huge bit of business for us. Jim, then Barry.
Yeah, thanks very much again, Andrew, for this paper. And I think Graham covered that eloquently there, and do get picking up on that for the primary 6 and 7 are also the half-price school meals and the secondary school. I suppose my concern, Andrew, is about the Barney campus and where there is potential there for 100% uptake of free school meals for those that qualify. Only 37% of taking that opportunity. So it really concerns me that there's 63.9% in the cost of living crisis that's really no taking up that opportunity. Has there been on a deeper dive into why that potentially is the case?
Thanks, Councillor. I think across the board we've seen a number of actions and obviously a number of those things in terms of building that relationship with the schools and obviously linking in with the services at a local level. I think not just the Barony campus, but a number of the secondary schools, that has been a challenge. We are seeing the uptake of half-price meal deals. Uptake is similar to what we're seeing in terms of the free school meals. A number of schools have made quite targeted approaches, but clearly we have also introduced the updated management system and parent pay system that allows parents to kind of look at the meal options, recognising that there are some choice issues and things like that, and obviously trying to encourage that discussion with parents and young people at home prior to actually ordering their meal options. And again, we are looking at sort of further activity with the schools. As mentioned in the report, obviously there are some schools where those uptakes are low, and we will, the team, Mark, is already kind of made arrangements to discuss those things with the head teachers, and there is a meeting with the Barony scheduled in the next couple of weeks to look at both production changes so as we can maximise the service options, recognising the Barony does have different service points as well, but actually sort of doing that deeper dive into the relationship with the school to see what else we can do to support young people, particularly those ones that are entitled to free school meals.
Thanks, Andrew. Barry?
Thank you, Dougie. And again, Andrew, thank you for the report. I think, as Councillor Barton mentioned, our catering staff are absolutely second to none. And going out in some of the schools across East Ayrshire, and I'm minded of the Barney campus, where actually the level of detail and the knowledge that the staff have of individual young people's food requirements and allergies it just blew me away of their extensive knowledge. So absolutely more power at their elbow, and we welcome everything that they do. A few questions here really, and it's more around in terms of paragraph 67 and page 20 around dignified food. Obviously there is the potential, and we know that for the stigma around anyone being given that food at the end of the day. Just wondered what initiatives we're taking and what kind of ways we're doing that to make sure there isn't any embarrassment for the young people there. In terms of school meal debt, just think if we can maybe get some clarity around where you think this is obviously going. We see it has increased despite the half-price school meal, which obviously is a fantastic policy, but to make sure that we continue to support parents as much as possible. Without a doubt, the cost of living crisis isn't over. And the next question was really around you mentioned it, paragraph 17, page 22, in terms of the increased production at the main hubs, which of course is welcomed, and you want to see as much of that food as we can be produced and within our own establishments on site. I just some clarity as to, you mentioned a number of facilities will be a focus for growth, but then in the next paragraph talks about in addition to the immediate changes for August 2025. So just what the timescales are around that. And obviously, if you can keep us updated in terms of paragraph 79 as the school estate improves and changes, how we're going to model that. But if you can come back to me on those points, Andrew, that would be great. Thanks.
Thanks, Barry. Andrew?
Okay. Thanks, Chair. I've noted them all down. So So yeah, I mean, in terms of the dignified food approach, I mean, we have rolled that model out across the vast majority of our schools. It's very much a combined approach with education staff within the school as well as the catering staff, and it's, I mean, we don't record anybody. We don't take any kind of note of any of the young people who are taking it. And obviously some of the education colleagues will obviously encourage the young people and support them to take advantage of it. Effectively, it is just set out at the end of the day, and it allows people to come and take it as required. There's no specific targeting in terms of communication. It's much more a sort of one-to-one discussion within the individual schools to support people who may benefit from it. And again, from the service point of view as well, obviously it's also reducing waste as well. So I think really keen to support that one, and obviously both from an education point and a catering perspective. The school meal debt issue, as members will be aware, we kind of looked at that and made commitments previously to try and kind of reduce that. And obviously that funding has been there to support it. And clearly the Scottish Government has made that commitment as well to reduce that debt. The challenge is always the ongoing. What we did see over the last couple of years was a significant increase in the debt around primary 6 and 7. So families who were getting free school meals in primary up to primary 5 were then struggling to then find the money, but obviously still valued the service. So that's probably where I would see the biggest improvement, where obviously with the free school meals for 6 and 7 and then continuing with the half price in secondary school, I would anticipate we would see that reduction in the build up of debt. We still continue to have the welfare in schools policy, and that is very much encouraging, first off, making sure no children actually arrive at school without getting fed, and secondly, that the school and the caring service are aware of who is building up debt, and there is further support in terms of financial inclusion, assistance, etc., to encourage wider support and any income maximisation, etc., to help address potential wider issues that families may have. So that, as I said, dignified approach remains very, very strong in individual schools to deal with that. In terms of the production hubs, then clearly increases from August with the further expansion, the reorganisation around early years basically will provide some increased numbers around certain locations noted in the paper. So the likes of Stewarton, we would see some additional demand within the production, so we'll put in some additional storage over the summer. Mount Carmel, Unthank as well, we would see some changes immediately within the kitchen spaces and increased storage to manage those additional meal numbers. But as you mentioned there in terms of the school estate, and Simon might pick this up in East Ayrshire Performance, so Comores, we're replacing the dining hall there. So again, looking at what capacity and new production arrangements will be available there. We've also got obviously Doon campus within the programme. We've got Stewarton Extension. So all of these schools, as we move forward, we will look to build in that additional capacity, and that will reflect where we maybe change some of the production arrangements and the service model as we go forward, recognising those changes over the next few years within the school estate. But obviously the ask in terms of the commitment of the funding we've got from the Scottish Government will be used over the summer to address the specific pressures where we see those increases just now, so that we're prepared and able to kind of take that forward. Hopefully that covers all of the points. Thanks.
Elaine? Sorry, Bill, you all right with that? Yeah, Elaine?
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, Andrew. A really comprehensive report, covers a lot of points, and there's some really, really impressive points in the report, but it's easy to read. And like Councillor Barton, I can't sing the praises of our catering staff enough. Anytime we went to them for information or queries, the depth of knowledge that they have and how willing they are to share that is really quite amazing. The visits to schools are quite enlightening as well, and the interaction with the staff really gives us reassurance that we're doing the best we can for our children in all the facilities. There also is a lot of really interesting stats in the paper, as Councillor Mann picked up, some of the variations between the geographical locations and the different setups. So not for this forum, but I think it would be good to have a good deeper dive in there to look at the different factors and the behaviours in the different communities and what more that we could do from the whole continuous improvement loop. When we are, and I know we've approved in other capital projects, bringing on some new dining facilities and investing in the schools, a personal ask for me would be to look at that whole dining experience. So not just about the catering equipment and the storage, but what's that environment like for the children? And I know it's covered in point 49 on page 16. It's touched on there, but I think again that could be an area we could go for that whole continuous improvement. If the children are at school and they're having a good experience there, they're not in queues, they're not in a stressful environment, that will help with some of the dysregulation that we're seeing as well, and calming the pupils down in the school, and making them maybe stay longer in the school as well, rather than going out to local burger vans or whatever that's out there that obviously isn't offering the healthy options that we want the children to do. One specific question I have, I noticed there's 2 posts which look like very important posts in my mind, a development chef and a post to look at the Natasha's Law with the management of allergens and the specialised dietary needs. And obviously it's a management prerogative, but I do wonder sometimes these posts, when we're looking to recruit into a temporary position for 2 years, how easy or difficult is it for us to attract the right calibre of people into those posts when they're actually temporary in nature? Thank you.
Okay, absolutely agree with you in terms of the dining experience is really critical to the overall approach to providing that lunchtime experience. I think what we've seen over a number of years is probably some of that shift from what was sort of traditional dining rooms. And when you look at some of the new facilities, William McIlvanney campus, the Barony campus, even some of the primary schools as well, we've shifted what that model looks like to try and kind of create some variety in terms of those service counters, seating arrangements and things like that. Although not specifically mentioned, it is part of what we're looking at just now as well. One of the areas we're looking at is that particularly with a number of the schools and particularly some of the bigger campuses, we've got what are called the Seco tables, which is the big round tables with the wee stools on them. There are other alternatives to that, which are more kind of foldable benches and things that go into the wall. So we are looking at those kind of things to try and just improve that environment, both from a practical health and safety point of view for staff, but also in terms of the dining experience. So those are things that we're also including in this sort of review of each of the locations as well. We've obviously invested even at Loudon as well, just in terms of the recent furniture, working with the schools to develop the dining room spaces. So those things are still continuing. As well as obviously looking at that sort of longer term capital investment as well. The 2 posts that we're looking at, I suppose these are technical assistants for the development chef and the food safety officer we've already got in place. So this is about strengthening that resource rather than and maybe just trying to increase the impact that they have. Susie, who's our food safety and allergies officer, it's to provide some assistance to her to deal with the extent and working with the individual schools and parents rather than, so it's not something we don't have, it's to strengthen that and also potentially develop a bit of succession planning around these areas as well.
Brian Eddy, just for a few comments.
Thanks, Leader. It's just, and Andrew knows this, we've obviously conversations at times about half-price school meals, etc. I think we should always remember that the paper outlines the actual cost of a school meal is £4.11. and no one pays £4.11. So everyone gets at least 40% subsidy from this council in terms of their school meal. And then we talk about half-price school meals, they then go up to a 70% subsidy that you get to it, or 100% subsidy if it's a free school meal. So it's actually just laying out the strategic direction of the council in terms of supporting our young people and supporting well-being is there for every child who takes a school meal to a minimum of a 40%, like subsidy, and then it subsequently gets higher than that as you go, further down. So it's just, we use the terms because it's half the full cost, if we call it that, but it's not half the cost that actually costs us to deliver it. So everyone gets a subsidy.
Thanks, Eddie. Drew?
Thanks, Chair. As most people know, I've been building a boat for Doon Academy over the past couple of years. I've just moved it down to Doon Academy to finish inside it. So I've had school meals there at first hand and reading their staff, as other colleagues saying, the choice in the schools is absolutely fantastic. But I think there's still a culture there in most schools, and I've seen it at the Robert Burns campus there first hand as well. Young people still want to go up to town centres all the time. So it's how we tackle that and manage to keep them in the schools. And Andrew, when we do the Doon campus, I hope when we do, as I've just spoken to there about doing the facilities, that maybe the young people would want to stay in the school rather than go up into these town centres, because it is just sort of assembly halls basically we've got just here just now. And hopefully that will change the figures in Doon Academy, because I can't speak highly enough of Irene and our staff and the choice that we have there at Doon Academy.
Yeah, I mean, I think both things, and touching on Councillor Cowan's point as well. I mean, when you look at that service model that we've adapted over the years, I mean, certainly external kiosks has been one of the attempts, which I think has worked very effectively. And again, sort of changing that sort of layout within the dining rooms. And again, if we can change some of these traditional historic sort of seating arrangements and things like that, then I think it starts to create a much more positive environment. And obviously spaces that both education can use within the rest of the school day as well, so it's not just something that's there for lunchtime. Clearly, when we're developing Doon campus, then yeah, those would be all of the ideas we'd want to kind of develop within that facility as well.
Thanks, Andrew.
Elaine?
Thanks, Chair, for letting me back in. I just want to pick up on Eddie's point about the value and the standard of the food. I think maybe we need to do a real advertising, marketing promotion to the parents. And I know there's some best practice in a lot of the schools where the parents come in for a sort of dining experience, and also the schools doing the transition. The new pupils get shown around the area and they get that school meal one. And I know yous are doing it, but it's maybe picking out the best practices and sharing that across our school network, and perhaps even, I know Chris Walker came to a recent Parent Council Steering Group Forum discussion to talk to parents through that network. But how do we do that? How do we market that? How good the service actually is, what the value for money is compared with, going into a high street shop and getting a meal deal, how good our meal deals are. So I know you're doing it. I know you're looking at me, Andrew, but I'm just saying, could we accelerate it a bit more?
So, yeah, so the team are working with the comms team just now, and they've developed a bit of a programme between now and August. And I think there is a bit there about timing with marketing, is making sure that you get that right timing. But we will be looking to do quite a bit of promotional work between now and August, just to obviously highlight the range of benefits and opportunities that the council's investment and the expansion of free school meals will offer as well. But yeah, very much want to kind of focus on the quality of the food as well. So that one's in hand.
Thanks. I don't know about marketing, but I sometimes frequently tell my son I can predate Graham Barton a decade or so, but I tell what was on the agenda for the school meals when I got them, when it was deep fried battered mutton with turnip, or the speciality I remember, pork Hawaiian, which was a pineapple ring with a linked sausage through the middle of it. So we've came a long way since then, but just as well it's 10:30 or 12 o'clock, but there you go. But no, I think we do need to be absolutely proud of what our staff are producing, and we maybe go retro back to the 60s and 70s some other time, eh? Okay, sorry about that, members. Somebody's got a hand up. Who is it? Oh, it's John. John. John McFadden.
Thank you. Andrew, just an idea, because I'm pretty sure we don't do this at the moment. I mean, we must buy in huge amounts of meat and products like that. So, part of my family has been in the butcher's business for 50 years, so I know what goes on, and I've worked in it sometimes during the summers, and I know what the markups are like. With the huge amount of people we feed now, is it worth considering? Well, it's got to be worth considering if it was run properly, that we had our own commercial butchery department. We actually buy insides of beef, whole animals, buy it all in and butcher it. Because not only could we then get probably better quality and better priced meats and meat products, we could then make all of our own hamburgers, hot dogs, sausages, pies. We could make all sorts of the stuff that the kids do want to buy at these burger vans and shops and things like that. The difference is we could make them and leaving out all the preservatives, cut the fat levels down, use better grain products in them. We could actually make a lot of the stuff that the kids would like to buy. Maybe, if they could buy a hot dog roll or a burger roll, all sorts of stuff like that. And it would be healthy. I mean, I know all the commercial stuff you buy is all rubbish and preservatives and cheap spices and stuff, but the sheer scale of our operation now, having our own commercial butchery department, must be a huge cost saving option. Just let your thoughts on that, please.
Thanks, John. For me, you might get the uptake of vegan alternatives. I don't know, but it's a serious suggestion. Andrew, what do you think?
So I think that there's a number of things in there. I mean, clearly, as Councillor Barton mentioned earlier on, we do have the Food for Life Gold accreditation, and very much that's focused in on how we source our produce, but also higher welfare standards that we specify in our contracts. We are currently out at the moment. Tenders are out at the moment in terms of our fresh local produce supplies, and that really is trying to increase that quality, and obviously the standards that you described there, Councillor McFadden, is very much been something that we've been proud of over the last 20 years in terms of traceability. I think the second part of it is investing in the businesses that are out there locally that we would look to support across that investment. And we've again almost 20 years now of doing that with local butchers, with local milk suppliers, with egg suppliers, and fruit and veg suppliers as well, across Ayrshire. And I think the third part is obviously in terms of the investment we're looking at in terms of the AMEC at Moorfield and the links to economic growth in the food and drink industry. And I'll maybe bring David in just on the AMEC in terms of some of the work that's been done there, because butchery is one of the areas that has been considered in terms of that economic growth support.
Yeah, through you, Chair, yes. We've got a lockdown design for the AMEC project, and one of the design food kitchens is dedicated to butchery. There is obviously a gap in the market where there's sufficient butchers there, so we are looking at how to upskill that, and that's a kind of gap area within the market right through central and west of Scotland. So that definitely is an area that we're looking to invest in, and as we've followed the evidence to take forward the design of the building. Hopefully that answers your question, Chair.
Well, is that us actually creating our own butchery department to supply our own meat from slaughterhouse to table then? Because my thoughts is, rather than buying in stuff that someone else has processed with a big markup on it, from the point of view of the school meals and providing everything, are we actually going to have our own butcher's department there that's actually going to butcher up and supply all our own kitchens and potentially the leisure trust? We're going to take that markup out the loop so the council can save lots of money. That's what I'm asking.
Through you, Chair, we will have a facility there. We are still working on the operating model for that. So we haven't determined just exactly what the way forward with that is. But it won't be a council's butchery department, but we'll be working with the business sector and that. So we'll be looking at the best operating model to get the most efficiency that we can. Thanks, Chair.
I was just suggesting we
John.
did our own. We could save money, that was all.
Okay. Thanks for that, John. Sure, Andrew will consider that. But I mean, that's great to see some of the work that we're given to some of the companies round about. I had the pleasure of going around Corrie Mains Farm to see the chickens being looked after well, free range, and other local businesses that we're certainly keeping in work and going from strength to strength. So that's part of what we do with our Gold Soil Association awards that we've had recently. But well, is there I'll not mention other school dinner menu items again. But is there any other comments, Barry?
I think kind of segueing a bit for butchers, in terms of vegan opportunities, and I declare an interest in that the company I work for also have a vegan food production that they do deliver to schools, certainly in parts of England and Wales. But just thinking out, outside the box in terms of what we could be doing in terms of vegan alternatives, and to promote those. I have to say I was always a bit sceptical of it, but I've tried some of the stuff and, I have to say it's first class. And just wonder what we are offering or what potential to expand in that there could be. Thanks.
It's what seems to be becoming a more favoured option, but Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably just around that menu choice and variety that we do offer. We do always provide vegetarian options, and I think that sort of shift from what would be some of the traditional vegetarian choices into a much more varied and wider range that's available now is certainly something that we'll look to incorporate in the menus. We do have to meet the nutritional standards, which I think does have some challenges around protein levels and energy levels and things like that on a day-to-day basis, depending on the products that we are using. But I think both in terms of that environmental impact and moving away from meat as a direction of travel that's positive around those choices. And again, I think just in terms of some of that sort of high street cultural offers that are available as well, very much those are things that we consider as we develop the menus on an annual basis. And I would anticipate that we will see more of those options on our menus as we go forward.
I mean, it's quite a few friends in that are taking that ethical or cultural choice, and I think that is expanding. I think we've just got to cater for that as much as we can and give where we can give, and without the issues that Andrew's describing, go where we can with that. Anyone else? Okay, can we agree the recommendations? Okay, next item is early learning and childcare payment of sustainable rates to funded providers, and it's Audrey Hill and Gwyneth Quinn. I don't know who's speaking to it.
Good morning, it's me, Gwyneth Quinn.
Oh.
Morning, everybody. So this paper sets out recommended increases to the rates paid to our funded providers and childminders delivering funded early learning and childcare contracted via the flexible framework. It also sets out the proposal to increase the rates paid to community childminders who deliver childcare to children in need. The recommended increases are from £6.23 to £6.75 for 3 to 5 year old places, and from £6.38 to £7.07 for eligible 2 year olds. And these rates, recommended increases, are detailed in paragraph 3.1. Paragraphs 4 to 5 provide background information and include in paragraph 9 that the flexible framework in East Ayrshire for providers of funded early learning and childcare, both funded providers and childminders, includes the commitment to undertaking a review of the sustainable rate rather than applying an inflationary uplift. Paragraphs 11, 12 and 13 outline 2 uplifts to the rate in 2024 and a further uplift in April this year. A 7.6% uplift was applied in April 24 following additional government funding of £424,600. And the purpose of that was to support funded providers to pay the increased real living wage, which at that point was increased to £12. Further uplifts were applied as part of the Best Value Service Review in October last year, which also resulted in the alignment of the rates paid to funded providers and childminders and introduced a different rate for eligible 2-year-olds, reflecting the increased staff ratios required for that age group. So the rates as a result of the Best Value Service Review were £6 per hour for 3 to 5-year-old places and £6.15 for places for eligible 2-year-olds. In April this year, a further uplift to support providers to pay the real living wage was applied. That was a 3.75% increase, bringing rates to £6.23 and £6.38, following additional funding from the government of £254,000. Updated rate setting guidance was published in February this year and is outlined in paragraphs 15 to 18. Key points to note in relation to this are that the rate should be evidence-based. It should be affordable for local authorities and not impact on the ability to pay for the service in the long term. It should be sustainable for providers and allow for reinvestment in their services. And local authorities should work with funded providers in reviewing the rate. The guidance also outlined 3 key principles local authorities are expected to work towards in rate setting for 2026-27 onwards. And they are an alignment of the rate paid to funded providers and childminders, the payment of a higher rate for eligible 2-year-olds, and making a separate payment per meal rather than the addition of an amount on top of the hourly rate. All of these principles have previously been adopted in East Ayrshire. The separate meal payment has always been in place, and a separate rate for eligible 2-year-olds and alignment for childminders were introduced as recommendations in the Best Value Service Review. On the 31st of March this year, the government published an overview of rates paid by local authorities across Scotland for session 24-25. This is detailed in paragraph 19. So the reports on the rate paid in East Ayrshire prior to the 3.75% uplift in April this year. Based on the data reported, the rates in East Ayrshire were the lowest in Scotland for funded provider group services and 29th out of 32 authorities for 3 to 5-year-olds and 30th out of 32 authorities for eligible 2-year-olds for childminder rates. Paragraphs 20 to 23 outline how the review process was undertaken in East Ayrshire this year between the 6th of March and the 9th of May. Key points to note are, as of the 1st of May, we had 7 group funded provider services on the framework and 38 childminders on the framework and 21 community childminders. We engaged with both funded providers and childminders. We issued a questionnaire to childminders and we had 2 meetings with funded providers. The purpose of these meetings was to give them the opportunity to share their views about key issues in the rate setting process and to outline to them how we would approach the process. We explained that we would use a cost calculation method as a starting point, and the methodology used for that was the same used in the cost collection exercise undertaken by Ipsos Mori in 2022 and captured in the May 22 guidance for rate setting for 22-23. There are issues with this method, which are outlined in paragraph 24. Most notable being that there's no distinction for costs for providing early learning and childcare for different age groups. However, as I mentioned, the legal adult-child ratios and therefore the costs are very different. Wage levels, which are the biggest component of costs, also have a very significant impact on the hourly rate calculation. Our funded providers welcome the opportunity to share their views on the key issues. They told us that the use of financial information for the previous year doesn't reflect costs for the following year in which the rate is to be paid. However, also 3 out of 7 providers were not able to provide information for financial year 24-25 by the date requested, outlined in paragraph 20. Variation in the size and type of provider are other key factors impacting on the cost of delivery. The Scottish Government is commissioned to undertake a new cost collection exercise this spring, which is already underway. They've commissioned the Diffley Partnership to do this, and the aim of the exercise is to gather more robust and reliable information about costs with a view to informing greater standardisation of rates in the future. So summing up in relation to the review process, whilst we are able to calculate delivery costs for 4 providers, resulting in a mean cost of £7.99 per hour, it's not a reliable indicator of the approximate cost of delivery. The review process did evidence that costs had increased, and when we look at the rates paid in East Ayrshire in comparison to other local authorities, that would suggest that increases should be applied if affordable. Paragraph 28 summarises the exercises undertaken with colleagues in finance, modelling costs based on different increases to the rate. Those exercises evidenced that an increase to £6.75 and £7.7, as detailed in paragraph 29, is affordable based on phase 1 applications and projected phase 2 applications. Tables 1 and 2 in paragraph 30 outline the projected costs of places based on phase 1 admissions data. Paragraph 31 indicates that the proposed increases to the rates would cost an additional £172,751 for funded provider places and an additional £17,276 for childminder places, based on phase 1 admissions data. These additional costs can be met from the existing budget, which includes the additional amount provided by the Scottish Government earlier this year. The impact of the proposed increases on payments to community childminders, the 21 community childminders that we have, is also outlined here, and the cost would be an additional £5,618, which can be met within the existing budget. So these proposed increases to the rates would bring the rates in East Ayrshire in line with both North and South Ayrshire, based on 3.75% increases to their rates for 24-25. No change to the payments for funded providers for meals are advised, as detailed in paragraph 33. The £3 payment is above the average at £2.88. Paragraph 36 notes that we're dependent on our funded providers and childminders to fulfil our statutory duty. Our smaller and private and voluntary providers are at most risk of not being financially viable, and the rates paid to them and other providers is therefore of critical importance. Paragraph 37 provides information about the uptake for 2025-26 at phase 1. The figure of 2,183 total children aged 3 to 5 in a funded place is 214 less than the total in this age group for session 24-25. However, it is based on phase 1 admissions, and phase 2 admissions are in process just now. Paragraphs 38 and 39 refer to cross-boundary arrangements, and paragraphs 40 to 60 outline the implications of this paper across key areas. The rate paid to our funded providers and childminders, both childminders on the framework and community childminders, supports the economy in East Ayrshire in terms of revenue and employment. The services these organisations and individuals provide directly impacts the quality of the start in life for our youngest children. Economic growth and supporting children are priorities within key plans within the Council, community and strategic plans. The commitment to improving employability, as outlined in paragraph 45, aligns with a new partnership agreement between East Ayrshire Council and the Scottish Childminding Association to support the recruitment and retention of childminders. Paragraphs 54 to 58 outline the financial implications. The Best Value Service Review undertaken last year has provided a platform of a structured and sustainable financial position for the service to operate from, and the recommended increases can be met within the existing budget based on the projections that were undertaken. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks for the report. What a big service it is. I appreciate just how just over £27 million now. It's a huge amount of money. Colleagues, Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to highlight it was a specific ask last year from elected members to look at the rates with our neighbours in South and North Ayrshire. So it's very encouraging to see that the proposed increases will bring us in line with our neighbours and hopefully help strengthen the workforce here in East Ayrshire. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Anyone else? No, can we go to recommendations, paragraph 3, can we agree the recommendations? Okay, thanks for that. Okay, we now go to East Ayrshire Performs, and Joe, you will lead it.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. This is the end of year report. It shows, as you can see, a much improved financial position, but it's also a report that reflects on the year just past, a year that presented substantial challenges for you as elected members, but it also created incredible challenges for budget holders and heads of service as they sought and sometimes fought to bring budgets back into line. It's a report that spends a few pages, a few paragraphs on the past year, and you can see at paragraph 9, it takes us back to the Q1 projection that we saw in August last year. That led immediately to you approving a series of controls. We changed and updated our financial regulations. Recovery plans and corporate recovery plans were prepared for your consideration and approval. You injected additional funds into specific services, and as a result of that work and the ongoing work within services, we have a position where services are in a much better financial footing today than they were in August, and because of the work that's been done and the funding you have included in injecting into services, we have our services starting this year in a much better position than last. However, as your financial advisor, it's right that I also say that I regard 2024-25 as a transition year, and that's not to take away from the work that you do or my colleagues do in trying to keep budgets back into line, but transitioning to a place where, in light of the announcements being made both locally, nationally and across the UK, it is quite clear that there will not be substantial funding coming to local government. And so we transition to a place where we try and deliver the services within a finite resource. And that leads and will lead colleagues to bring before you a series of options that will support them in doing so. It's challenging decisions, but it's about maintaining and sustaining a council that is financially able to exist. And so, as I said, grateful to you, elected members, but also to my colleagues for the work that's been done. In terms of the year end, we can see an improved position where we have services that have either broken even or have underspent, or in the case of our Integration Joint Board and Health and Social Care Partnership, a continuing overspend. They are as listed, and in the year as well, the report seeks approval for funds to be lodged into repairs renewals taking account of the withdrawals that were taking place during the year to support colleagues in ARA, particularly with road slips, and also in terms of the challenges we have around a capital programme and the debt charges, and placing that into our capital fund so it can be used when the projects then materialise. And I suppose in terms of education, you know from the discussions we've had throughout the year that there's 4 main challenges within that service. One was early years, and that has been rectified through the service review that was done, and the previous report demonstrates that budget's ability to absorb more costs. We had challenges around probationers, and through the work that colleagues in education have done, we believe that with a fair wind in terms of funding and placements and the skills that the probationers will bring, we should be okay for this year too. In terms of ASN transport, you know that a review is taking place, and that will bring forward proposals for you. It is likely, given the duration of that review, that you will continue to see overspends and financial challenges being reported in the next East Ayrshire Reforms report as we begin to transition that service to. And in terms of HQ cover or absence in schools, then that has been subject to a great deal of debate between myself, finance colleagues and colleagues in education and head teachers and secondary head teachers too, to design a new system that will hopefully help the service as we go through the year. So in terms of education, a break-even position against a £140 million budget. It doesn't mask the challenges that service face. It will continue to face services, but a much improved position than we had in August last year. In terms of communities and economy, it started the year with a £1.2 million of an overspend, a recovery plan. The first recovery plan was then created and presented to you for approval. Throughout the year, colleagues across those range of services have worked tirelessly to bring those budgets back into line. You have seen both that action taking place, and you've seen the consequence of that action taking place in terms of some of the decisions that have been made. And they've ended the year £750,000 underspent. But that does mask challenges within that service, and those group of services aiming to try and work back from a recurring £2 million of an overspend that's inherent within those services. Incredible work's taking place, as I said, with recovery plans. And you can see in the report at paragraph 24 that within housing and communities, that challenges remain, particularly within cleaner communities rather, and also within waste. In Ayrshire Roads Alliance at paragraph 25, you note that despite the best efforts, that service has ended the year £1 million underspent, and you can see the support being provided across those range of services to bring the collective group of services underspent. But that goes back to challenges within the service itself with primary and secondary transport. You've taken action, members, as Cabinet, and the consequences of those decisions will be effective from August this year. But it does mask challenges within primary and secondary transport. And as part of the budget that you approved in February, then further funds were placed into that budget to try and absorb some of those pressures. Paragraph 26 picks up wellbeing and the Health and Social Care Partnership. And this was the area that signalled a £10 million possible overspend at the end of the year, back in August. A service that has had 2 recovery plans. One has been successfully and fully achieved. The other will take some time to achieve and will continue into this financial year too. That recovery plan, or those recovery plans, identified around £4 million of savings that could be achieved. And together with that, the work of colleagues within Health and Social Care and the IGIB, and the £4 million that you injected into the service in January, then we understood that the service would be in a place where, hopefully, as we approach March, it would be in a break-even position. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. £1.9 million of an overspend at the year end, despite the best efforts of both Cabinet and officers. And so the report asks you to inject some further funds into the partnership, £1.9 million, so that they can end the year break even and they're not carrying a deficit into this year. In doing so, members, that takes the general fund uncommitted balance down to 2%, and the lowest it has been for many, many years. And so I'll monitor that carefully and bring back options to both colleagues at CMT and to yourselves as we go through the year. But it's likely that, given the scale of the challenges, which is demand-led, and you can see from the papers the real challenges within community care, that the overspends will likely continue as I present subsequent East Ayrshire performance reports to you in the coming months. As is normal at this time of year, we present end-of-year tables at paragraph 30 and 31. It shows the balances, and at paragraph 32, it shows that despite that, those pressures, we are seeking to set some funds aside. Some of those funds are placed in a holding account just because of timing, others because of claims that will be passed to us from Glasgow City Council. But we are seeking approval today to also spend £800,000 on the property pledge, the school property pledge. And that builds on the service concession report that you agreed as council over a year ago, whereas we extended the payments of schools. You quite rightly said that we need to set aside funds to maintain those schools, and so we've started that journey. The housing revenue account at paragraph 33 notes a £3 million under budget. There was an intention to draw balances down because of the way the service was operating, and because of the financial requirements of that service. There was no need to draw that down to the extent, but so a £2.9 million of an underspend in year. But you know that those funds in the underspend itself builds onto that £21 million of a balance, which will be used in the head of housing and communities. That fully committed as we go through to deliver against the HIP in the HAMF. Paragraph 34 takes us to capital, and it notes that the works at Dunlop Early Childhood Centre will exceed the budget that you approved by around £400,000 or 14%. Paragraph 34 gives the detail of that around groundworks and other issues in order to bring that establishment into use. Paragraph 36 picks in Galston local office, which is due to open around late summer, which is incredible news for those who are interested in that place. That's a budget that's been set aside of around £3.4 million, and I'm grateful to the head of economic growth, who, because their employability skills will be based in this office, they have found resource within the capital element of UK Shared Prosperity to add a further £800,000 into that budget. That links to this paragraph and also to paragraph 39, but it shows once again that collegiate approach that we take to try and identify funding opportunities to support the capital programme. That in itself then prevents subsequent borrowing. Palace Theatre is at paragraph 38. It shows the request to use £1 million from repairs and renewals to significantly enhance the frontage of the building, recognising the conversations that have taken place with colleagues in planning and also with planning members themselves. And paragraph 39 picks up on the £1 million for capital reallocation, £500,000 from greener infrastructure, and you're beginning to see that £500,000 flow down from Galston local office then. And those that £1 million being used to meet costs associated with the bullet points at paragraph 39, capital or community resilience and infrastructure in terms of Storm Ewan, and then events infrastructure and Dean Castle Country Park car park. Ayrshire Roads Alliance at paragraph 40 notes the approval you gave previously for £300,000 for repairs renewals. That's come in slightly under budget, and members are asked to note the position that the £50,000 that's been left over has been used to support and enhance the existing roads infrastructure. And in paragraph 41, Kilmarnock Leisure Centre Trust, as a council, we give a guarantee to that trust that should it end the year in a deficit, and in order to extinguish that deficit, they use the reserves. If there's anything left over in terms of that requirement to the deficit, then we give an undertaking to fund that to the tune of £200,000. The 31st of March, they noted a deficit of £135,000. They have exhausted their £55,000 of reserves and asking today for approval to use £80,000 from the uncommitted balance to meet that guarantee. It means as we go forward, and because of the the consolidation of the trust, that there will be no requirement for that guarantee to exist into the future. In the year-end reports, we give an update on RIPSA on paragraph 42. It is, as noted, the other parts of the report are covered in more detail in the subsequent sections of the accompanying report, and I'm happy, Chair, to stop there and take any questions members may have.
Thanks very much, Joe. An absolute challenging position there. But, you know, we heard, well, I certainly heard it causing leaders last Friday there. It's just been felt right across the 32 authorities, and probably we're in as good a position as any, but it's nonetheless pretty stark. And I don't remember our reserves being down to that 2 million ever before, but we know that the pressures on the IJB and pay claims, etc., coming through, but we're trying our best, taking initiatives all over the place and working hard with our colleagues and our trade union colleagues to try and address some of these issues where we can. But there's some of these issues that will have to be resolved at a national level. It's just that we'll do our best there. Claire, then Jim.
Thank you, Chair. Just to go back to paragraphs 26 and 27, and thanks for your explanation, Joe. I think we do have to look at the fact that we went from 10 million down to 1.86 million on 2 recovery plans, and I think that has to be noted. There is more pressure on these services, more people require these services. That pressure isn't going to go down, and as the leader said, I think we need to be looking to results at a national level as well. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Claire. We've got Ian.
Thanks, Dougie. A couple of points and a question. I think it was really useful that Linda came to speak to the administration on our wide-ranging ASN proposals, which I think make a lot of sense. Given where we are with the current model of transporting our ASN kids to and from school, I think it's right that this consultation ongoing takes place with those affected, so that by the time the schools go back after the summer of 2026, we can introduce a much more sustainable position, allowing any of the overspends we are currently experiencing to be ploughed back into frontline teaching, which will benefit all the kids attending East Ayrshire schools. Moving on to the IJB, the IJB, I agree that the topping up of a further 1.9% to the IJB is necessary, but go back to February's report, noted that the IJB would provide a direction to the council, and I wonder if this direction has been issued yet. I think that's really important that we get that as soon as possible. Agreeing today's drawdown, as Joe and yourself have mentioned, leaves the council just over 2%. Personally, I'd be much happier if we could get a figure back up to near 4%, because I think that helps the council in its entirety to address the ongoing difficulties that this council, along with every other council, face. It gives us a degree of flexibility, and I wonder if Joe would maybe comment on that. Thank you.
Joe?
Through you, Chair. I share my spokesperson's concern around the uncommitted balance. We do have some scope in terms of the balances review that will take place once the external auditors conclude their audit. That's around about September, October time. But the issue here isn't necessarily just the uncommitted balance. You have very kindly allocated funds during the year, over £6 million, and been asked for another £2 million now. It's about changing the service, and in terms of the IJB, or Health and Social Care Partnership, we do all we can, you do all you can, and we do a great deal of work. It will seek a national solution. It really will. But the point on the uncommitted balance isn't lost on me, and colleagues and myself will work to bring that balance back up, but recognising it's a really challenging time, and as you touched on, Leader, things around pay awards and the like, I will just lightly add further subsequent pressure to us as well, but not lost on me. In terms of the direction from the IJB, that is, I understand, still being created, but as we sit in June, it'll be important that that's presented fairly quickly, given that I'll be back before you around about late August in terms of the Q1 East Ayrshire Reforms Report, where we will anticipate probably an overspend in in the Health and Social Care Partnership, and a need for that direction to be in place, implemented, and for members here, as I said in the February budget report, to make decisions that will flow to you from the IGIB in order to bring that position back into a more favourable place.
Thanks, Joe. Linda, then Graham.
Thanks, Leader. Joe, can I just refer you to paragraph 38 in relation to the 1 million from the renewals and repairs funding for the Palace Theatre? Can you give a wee bit more clarity in like what they're actually talking about down, just for the fact that it's £1 million?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Mabon, for the question. I think it became apparent during the planning process that there would be a requirement and an opportunity to enhance the entrance, the frontage to the building to reflect the importance of that iconic building and that capital programme, and to ensure that we gave that part of the build equal and prominent significant investment in comparison to what was happening internal to the building. So those developments, those plans are still ongoing at the moment. We're talking about the opportunity to push back the entrance from the initial facade and the area to make sure there's an increased area just in front of the palace, with some steps that would lead then up into the road on London Road. There will be an impact on that London Road site in terms of the traffic flow. There's assessments going on at the moment in terms of what that will look like, but those initial assessments would suggest that there would be absolutely minimal impact to that traffic flow. So all that will play out in terms of the planning application that will be presented and will come forward as we've agreed with members as part of that process.
Thanks, Richard. Graham, then Barry. Yeah.
Thanks, Dougie. Just going to pick up on paragraph 39, the Dean Castle Country Park. It's good to see that the capital work's going in there. I'm very acutely aware of the pressures that's on Dean Road. Especially, we've got a very, very successful Dean Thistle Football Club. We put amazing facilities on for our young people, and it's going to see the expansion of what is still called East Ayrshire Leisure at the moment. It's going to see that increased pressure. So I look forward to more detail coming in that. Richard, I've spoken on a number of occasions about this. I think there might need to be more, but I'm glad you're looking at that for future proofing. And I'd like to talk about paragraph 40. The Gruger Road, Crooked Home. It's just a question to Ayrshire Roads Alliance. Is this £50,000 allocated for the road widening? Because I'm aware that the Gruger Road was already down for resurfacing, and it was just delayed due to the fact that we needed some legal loopholes cleared up.
Thanks. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think the Dean Castle becoming a victim of its own success, and it's having to trying to accommodate visitors a wee bit better than we're able to do at the moment. But Richard.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Barton. So in terms of Dean Castle car park strategy, and that's what we're currently working on with the Leisure Trust at the moment, because I agree with Councillor Barton, whilst this proposal will have a benefit of creating circa 20 more spaces, the solution needs to be broader and wider than that, and therefore there are some thoughts and some developments at the moment around a ground that's adjacent to the facility, and how we might move work in partnership with private sector in that space, but also with partners in regard to the resources between Bonnyton and Dean Thistle, etc., in terms of sharing that space. So those discussions are happening with between the Trust and partners at the moment, and we'll feed back to members as I've said. I don't know the details specific in relation to the question on Ayrshire Roads Alliance and the additional works in Gruger Road, but I'll come back to Councillor Barton on that specific item if that's okay through you, Leader.
Yeah, thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Leader. Just to follow up on the points in terms of Gruger Road, Crooked Home, the road widening has been long promised. In fact, it should have been delivered in the last term of this council. I do accept that there have been some legal issues around that, but I think if people of Crooked Home would like some answers around this and some clarity, and whilst the resurfacing is obviously welcome, I think any clarity you can give the Ward 4 members would be good in that regard in terms of making some progress. The question was actually more, question I've got really is in relation to Dunlop Early Childhood Centre, and obviously I haven't been along to see the fantastic new facility yet. Hopefully we'll get to do that in the coming months. In terms of where we're at just now, I just wanted to know, in terms of, I believe it was 72 places that the new facility can accommodate, and just what the uptake has been in that. And obviously previously they were in the school, just what use have the school now used in terms of that additional space that they'll obviously have now, just to try and get an idea, because obviously with the expansion in their early years area, it's more just to try and work out what's happening where they've come out of premises as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Will. Try and get an answer for you. Yeah. Linda?
Yeah, Leader, through you. So Councillor Douglas, more than happy to come back to you with exact figures. I can see my early years team are scurrying away at the right-hand side there. But to prevent any further delay, we'll just come straight back to you to answer both. What I can tell you is clearly with the move of Dunlop ECC to its new location, then clearly the school have obviously benefited from the extra breakout space that creates. But I'll get you a direct report from Ms Kelly around about what that looks like. And they've also had quite a few of their other facilities upgraded within the school. I know toilets were a big concern previously as well. So ultimately we'll come back to you with the allocation of places in Dunlop ECC and a more specific report on the use of the additional space that was vacated by them, if that's helpful.
Thanks, Linda. Just obviously, I think it's worth copying in the local members to that for Ward 1 as well, if that's okay. Thanks.
But Lynn, you want to come in on it?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Joe, for such a sombre report. We have got a kind of bleak financial landscape in front of us, but I do think it's important to take a moment out, as Councillor Maitland mentioned, to recognise the significant work that's been done by officers in some of the recovery plans. Obviously, doing nothing is not an option. And I know we've had previous discussions about moving away from some of the silo thinking across departments, across services, and some of the cross-cutting reviews that the Chief Executive instigated last year has changed some of the approaches to how we use budgets. I think in your narrative, the explanation of how the Economic Development Department has put money towards the Golson project, I think those little nuggets are useful for us, both for elected members, but also for other people who are maybe working in budgets and who are still working to old practices. I think that's not the norm anymore, and going forward, we really have to be a bit more innovative about how we use our money. And final comment, I worry a wee bit about how we take the community with us with some of these changes, both on the actual journey when we start out by making an initial announcement where we're going to put an investment, and then over the course of that project, what happens to it and what we actually end up delivering. And that is quite a complex and changing narrative. So how we keep people informed with that. And I know we've looked at annual budget consultations and things like that. And we've had discussions with the new Remake Kilmarnock Neighbourhood Board about engaging the community in some of these discussions, which maybe on the face of it aren't interesting to the public. But when we get to what we actually deliver, people do want to know that level of detail. But it's that whole engagement bit. So there's not really a question in there, just recognising where we are and where perhaps we need to go and do a bit more of. Thank you.
Actually, I think that's a good point, but Eddie, you want to come in?
No, I think it is, and so we'll bring a paper to council in June. It's a usual paper update in terms of our strategic plan, etc. But part of that starts to set out the engagement work we need to do during 2026 to eventually reach our new strategic plan in 2027. For the new council, and part of that can be me touring around a whole lot of village halls with two men in a dug, turning up, and it's the same two men in a dug that turned up the year before as well, at times things. It's about how do we get wider people engaged. As many members will know, I have regular meetings with groups of young employees. So I met with them yesterday, and actually it was the same open question I gave them. How do we actually engage more young people? You know, so we were talking to them about demography, and Amy Fraser with me doing that. But how do we actually get people actually interested in this and the implications of this? So I think you're absolutely right about how do we engage people more widely so they understand not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it. It's the why we're doing things. Sometimes we get all caught up in the what we're actually doing today instead of the big picture about why we're doing this. And it's back to it's the purposes of the strategic plan. And certainly, for, you know, fiscal stability is one of them, but there are lots of other things that we're trying to do in there around economic development, around well-being and things like that too. So you're absolutely right, and it's something we'll come back and talk about what the plan for engagement is over the next year to 18 months, so that by the time we do bring forward the revised strategic plan in 2027, we can evidence to members that there has been substantial and meaningful engagement around that.
Thanks, Eddie. Claire.
Moving on from what Councillor Cowan was saying and what you've said yourself there, Eddie, engagement is always the problem, and getting our word out there is always the problem. And I do believe that the budget consultations, the two men in a dog, no, absolutely not. But when we look to the LDP and how they're engaging with people and the dashboard statistics that we're getting off of that as well, it might be a way to look to far more online engagement. I mean, we got more results in, what was it, 100 results we got from the first couple of weeks of the engagement going up, and we got 100, I think, for the whole of the last LDP3. So you can, if we can maybe copy that form of model, and then we have dashboards in front of us that are so easy to understand, and we can get a direction of travel from that, and that's dashboards that we could share with the public. So thank you.
Thanks, absolutely. And just to say, you know, that alongside, obviously, we did have the online engagement for the budget where we get substantial engagement back for there. But it's who you get and how you make sure that's representative is the question around that.
Elaine?
Just a quick example, there was the Hulford Gala Day at the weekend, and the stall next to us, it was some members from the planning department that were doing that LDP interaction, and the materials that the girls had there were fantastic. So it's maybe looking for more softer approaches like that rather than booking a town hall, you know, on a rainy January evening and expecting for people to turn up to look at our budget plans. It's maybe that softer approach. It's maybe not as intimidating for people as well, so they will come forward and have a proper meaningful chat with our officers. Thank you.
I think the planners were out in Mauchline as well. I think that's maybe a good way to just softly approach folk, you know, just and try and get some feedback where we can, look at new innovative ways of doing that. Okay, nobody else. Am I back to you, Joe, or am I on to Simon?
Yeah, back to me, unfortunately, Chair. So page 55 takes us to the revenue section. I've gone through it, members, but just want to highlight a number of things to you. At the end of the year, the reserves policy allows services to carry forward any underspends they have, and you begin to see tables at the bottom of each section where services are seeking approval to carry those forwards. What you're also seeing in the revenue section this time is are the recovery plans. And so in page 57, you see the education recovery plan presented to you, £4 million of options in there, all but £90,000 of those options achieved through management action. Important to note, however, that a number of those options are one-offs, non-recurring. And so the work that the service did, supported by colleagues, will continue into this year too. And at the same time, we need to also be mindful of the budget pressures that will exist. In terms of that collaborative approach, though, we've had really incredibly successful meetings with secondary head teachers. We had one again yesterday afternoon. Secondary heads as strategic leaders of the council too have given undertaking to work with Linda and I, meet with us 4 times a year, and when East Esk Reforms is due up, to get their input in their direction on where they believe there could be scope for further efficiencies or just doing something differently. So that's a new part that's opened up as well, and really I welcome the work and the offer from my colleagues in education. Paragraph 50 or page 58 shows the services under the Chief Exec. In those two tables, those grey boxes, you begin to see BMK Store sitting in Finance and ICT, and also in governance. This is the store or the storage facility that holds our archives, and it holds a whole number of important documents and materials and equipment, including those that we need to hold our elections. The lease was up in that facility, and instead of extending the lease, we took the option to buy the building at a cost that is manageable within the budget we have. But we're also conscious that in buying a capital asset, it would normally fall to the capital programme into borrowing. But through that collaboration, as Councillor Cowan touched on, both the head of governance and myself have decided to use some of our balances jointly to pay cash for the building, so that there's not a building at £400,000 that costs £700,000 once you add in the debt charge. So that's the kind of stuff we're working on to try and be a bit smarter with our money, and at the same time try and not put any more pressure on the capital element. Within communities and economy, you can see the challenges that exist within Jane's area of Ara, and also within Blair's side of the house, despite the really good work, particularly in housing communities, to end the year under budget. You can begin to see in the subsequent paragraph the pressures that exist and the offsets that Blair and his budget holders and managers are doing to manage that budget effectively. But really, really good work there. And we see the recovery plan on page 60. Again, £1.9 million and £241,000 of that just outstanding. Some of that not material. Other parts of it was a proposal way back in August that, for example, the bad debt provision has not materialised, and additional work will be taken to bring that back online as we go through the year. But incredible amount of work being taken by colleagues in that collaborative approach, not just looking at individual services within communities and economy, but instead looking at a collective, a totality of those services. And from speaking to colleagues under Chief Exec's services, it's likely that as we go forward, people in culture, finance and ICT, governance, and I've forgotten one, corporate support, will then begin to join forces when it comes to both identifying options for each other, helping each other throughout the year, and particularly the budget setting and finding those options. So that collaboration is really, really taking place, and again, grateful to colleagues for their work on this. And on wellbeing at its rehearsed, you can see the headline here, which is within community care, £6.5 million overspent, but with underspends in other parts of the service. And that continuation of demand, costs, and the tail of the pandemic being really evident here. And so that direction that Councillor Linton spoke about, really important that is brought forward. The expenditure analysis is provided there. Just some other headlines here on page 63. We're showing that kind of complex table. Sadly, it's a requirement for audit that we put this in, because they match this then to the subsequent accounts that Coron and Fiona will produce in a few weeks' time. But some headlines here. Council tax, we're still seeing substantial pressures on council tax benefit. We're spending £1 million more than we get in budget. And Scottish Welfare Fund still feeling the strain too. But through your endeavours, we're funding that so that those who need that support most are continuing to get it. But it's giving you almost a snapshot of what's happening in the council, but more importantly, what's happening in the homes across East Ayrshire too. Moving on to council initiatives before I stop, Chair, if that's okay. Page 66. These are the options that flowed from the budget options, and it shows, despite my overview being maybe gloomy at times, but it's gloomy against a backdrop of we know what we're doing, we've got your support, and we're showing that collaboration. What this also shows is just incredible successful stories and updates around clothing grants for 3 and 4 year olds, 367 awards were made seamlessly, electronically, and without any stigma. And in terms of the extension of financial inclusion support, £1 million provided to those families. And it goes on and it goes on and it goes on, members, and it'll go further with the options that you made as part of this year's budget too. So really successful piece of work, and we begin to monitor it with some pride as we go on. Pupil Equity Fund is listed at page 6 to 8. It's the 31st of March. It continues into the year end. You can see the teachers and head teachers have spent the vast majority of their funding at 31st of March as they align that to school improvement plans and to the work taking place within the schools across the length and breadth of East Ayrshire. I'll stop there, Chair, take any questions before we move on.
Thanks, Joe. Just in terms of both these recovery plans that are mentioned here, we know just a considerable amount of work, certainly education and communities and economy. It's quite considerable. And elsewhere in the report, and just like to thank the staff for just it's a massive effort. We appreciate what's been done here. Colleagues, Elaine?
Thanks, Chair. It's just a quick one for me on the early years clothing grant on the council initiatives. Joe, fantastic that 376 families benefited from that. And I know in this year's February's budget setting process, we've increased that for the new school term this year to £75 per eligible child. So a bit like the conversation we had earlier about the promotion of the free school meals and half price school meal deals. Are we doing a bit more for this school term, or are we just relying on the existing methods we've used? Because I noticed that if we look at the last year's spend against what we allocated, we didn't use all the allocation. So did we over provide there, or do we have the people there that we're maybe missing getting to? I think that's what I'm driving at. And obviously, if it's £75 this year rather than £50, that's a great boost to young families.
Through you, Chair, you're absolutely right, Councillor Cowan. It was probably an over-provision. It was a finger in the air stuff to find out what we would need in the first year of it, if I'm honest. But in terms of the publicity, this is an odd thing in that Facebook tends to light up when parents and predominantly mothers then share the news with their friends to say that the applications are open. And with this one as well, it's a kind of another part of it is odd in that we recognise that the children will come into our establishments at 3 points in the year. And so we open those applications just before those 3 points as well to make sure that they've got the funds to enable the young person or the child to come. So, but you're absolutely right, we'll do some more in terms of the announcements and the news about both the considerable increase in the grant and also to get uptake increased wherever possible. A great news story.
Thanks, Joe. Just a wee minor point, just for me. I'm breaking a golden rule of politics. I'm asking a question I don't know the answer to. But I'm just curious in terms of, because I've just received in page 60 in terms of charges, recharge NHS for use of council premises. I was thinking to myself, good luck with that one, knowing the pressure that the health service budget's under. But I just wonder, is there any other reciprocation in terms of service in kind that we're, whether it's car parking or other facilities or anything like that we can get our money back?
So we have had really productive conversations with colleagues in NHS, and grateful to Andrew and to Angela for supporting me and others in that area. And we've got agreement that NHS Ayrshire and Arran will make a material contribution to the accommodation costs for their staff in our buildings, not just those that that are historical in nature, but for Johnny Walker Bond. And so we've got an open door there, which is good. And I think, from my understanding, I don't think that's something that colleagues in North and South have managed to get negotiation on yet, but we have, and bills are being paid. I think wider scope on that. I think with the challenges both entities face, I think that honest conversation around helping each other and can we do something that saves you or vice versa, I think there are places we need to go. I think we're probably more advanced in that area than colleagues, but I speak with my counterpart in NHS, and I'm willing to broach those other options with them.
No, thanks, Andrew. That's appreciate it. Yeah. Anyone else? No. Okay. Who are we next? The capital. Let's just back you.
Sadly, it's before we go, it's alternative delivery models on page 71, and this is where we set out the end of year position for both the Ayrshire Roads Alliance and what was the Leisure Trust. So, as been trailed throughout the year, those three elements of Ayrshire Roads Alliance show the strategic delivery and also local delivery for East and South. As has happened throughout the year, that strategic element is underspending, but we're seeing overspends in East and South. In the local delivery, it's around income levels, it's around staff costs, winter maintenance, and some other matters taking place in relation to South Ayrshire. The capital element of ARA is as listed in the table, and I suppose to expand on that, one of the major things that we've found throughout the year is the number and the extent of the road slips that have taken place across the East Ayrshire network. And you can see at the top of page 72 the projects individually and also the work that's taken place, and that work flows from that approval you gave as elected members at Cabinet to use repairs and renewals funding, given the urgency of this work. So you didn't hesitate in providing that funding, and grateful to you for that. So it's as listed. In terms of the car parks, we've got an update on the multi-storey around August 2025 and becoming available to ourselves in summer. Over the page, we note that 100% of carriageway and footway programme resurfacing has taken place at the year end. The lighting capital programme for the year is also complete. We've got some good news in terms of LED replacements where the costs are lower than the budget, and they'll take that element of excess budget and use that to look at ageing concrete street lighting columns, and not only improve the lighting column itself, but then replace the lanterns with LEDs. So great deal of work going on. It's you can see in the revenue side of the house pressure around recharges and also around primary and secondary transport costs, and then the capital side, some of the networks getting urgent work, using the funding that you provided. And moving on to the Leisure Trust, it's a very slight overspend. It's a break-even position in the main. It's been a good story throughout the year as Annika and the team have worked to prepare the trust for the new trust, and also at the same time making sure that the budget that they have is managed effectively. And so in terms of alternative delivery models, there is noted. And in terms of the Treasury, page 76, it shows the level of borrowing and our investments. It shows the usual information around the PWLB and the Debt Management Office. I'm happy to stop there before you hand across to Simon for capital.
Thanks. Can I just maybe just a couple of small items and a bigger one, just in terms of the ARA. Just in terms of bus station improvements, a number of the local members went down. It's not quite finished because we're looking for some signage improvements. And I was in Saturday, and it's still just. I think there's just needs to be a wee bit of that before it's completely finished. And just to put a mention of that, and just maybe to mention Green Street car park. I think we're already the site's all cleared, and we're all just waiting with bated breath. Just the sooner we can get the tarmac down and just make things a wee bit easier around there, the better. And just finally, I'm just going to mention in terms of the Leisure Trust, great to see the work that's been done in John Dickey Street South. Quite surprisingly, and the low cost have managed to do that, and it's the potential. I think we've all been round there is quite significant, and I just think there was a wee bit criticism I thought was extremely unfair in social media, when we think, you know, that's most of the staff have come out of the Dean Castle to improve the use of that. So, you know, to extend the kind of commercial use of that. So I think there's maybe a wee bit in terms of comms that we need to get that over to people. It's really quite a solid and good bit of work that we've done there. Claire.
Thank you, Dougie. You
Yeah.
put the words out my mouth regarding Wallace Chambers. It's what I wanted to speak about. However, just going back to Arrow, the pressures that are building just now on the Belfield interchange are backing back and have done for a few years to the A71 slip road out going into Campbell Street. And we've had requests locally several times over the years for lights. I knew it was something that the previous MP was looking at as well. So I would like to know, not here necessarily, but if there's any progress to looking at lights. The frustration in the build up in Campbell Street, just outside the fire station, is getting really the pressure's on. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll just take them all together and get Simon to answer them, if that's okay, Simon. Through then, Barry.
Thanks, Chair. No surprises. I'm going to mention myself there, and it's alternative delivery models there, halfway down the page. The B741 Coal Glen slip, we're heading in for, this is going up to the 9th Christmas, we're heading into with these traffic lights here. There's been big problems, I've mentioned it before. It's all down to like the wind farm companies putting their cables up the roads, and it's allowing them to do that. And then they put in a £3.4 million per day liability. That has now been sorted out with legal, as far as I know, down to, I think, a more realistic liability, which is put on these type of works. But it's made the contractors scared of this. The assurances for Spain that 3.4 million is not going to be there. The contractors are not want to apply for this job. So I maybe ask yourself, Chief Executive, and maybe David, for legal there, to see if what they could do with this to move it on. As I say, 9 years we're moving into that this year again, so it's just not moving on at all. We seem to be.
That's right. You've raised it consistently. I think we're aware. Don't know if it's something they can address at this time, or we come back to us on it.
It's not something I could pick, address just now, but something we can pick up, take forward.
That's fine, Eddie. Let's have a look at it. Thanks.
Okay, I'll bring Barry and then I'll bring Simon in. Is it something for Simon,
Something for Simon, indeed. Just on the Campbell Street off-slip and the lights, if you recall, Leader, at the last Ayrshire Shared Services Committee, I raised this because it is in the programme to be done this year. And I asked for significant advanced warning signage, because that will be a massive impact when they're doing works there. In fact, at that last Shared Services Committee, I asked for an update in terms of timescales, because I think the original date was for April. Clearly that hasn't happened. So it's maybe something I can raise again on Friday. Ayrshire Shared Services, or can get an update potentially from ARA following this meeting. On the refurbishment of car parks, a bit like yourself, Leader, I'm looking forward to see Grange Street finally happen. It's taken a long time. In terms of the multi-storey car park demolition, and I suspect this does kind of cross over because it goes from alternative delivery models into both the capital programme. I just wanted some reassurances from Simon relative to the updated timescales for those works to be finished, which we're now seeing this mid-August. And obviously we know there's been quite a bit of antisocial behaviour around the building, and it's caused, I'm sure, significant issues and significant health and safety concerns. But just what delay, if any, or impact the antisocial behaviour has had on being able to get that, that multi-storey down. But it is encouraging to see a bit more activity in the last few weeks. It's more obvious that works are happening, because I think there's certainly been a bit of criticism out there. It's taking a lot longer than expected to demolish. It's a really constrained site, but I think in terms of comms, and you've picked up on that, Leader, that we do maybe need to also get that message across. This is not an easy thing. We can't just dynamite it and it's away. It's a significant piece of work when you're surrounded so close by other uses, shops and the public. Thanks.
Thanks, Barry. Okay, Simon, I know there's some of them are not all yours, but just in terms of some of the capital stuff.
Thanks, Chair. Unfortunately, I'm not really able to answer the roads questions. I'd need to kind of pass that one on to Jane at ARA. But picking up on the multi-storey car park, as Councillor Douglas has pointed out, it's been a complex project. The contractors had to changes his method of demolition. It's also involved additional safety measures around about the scaffolding to try and reduce antisocial behaviour and people that were accessing site. That's all been undertaken now. There's been 2 successful crane lifts through the night over the last kind of couple of weekends, which have gone according to plan. The contractors actually managed to do more work over these evenings than had been anticipated, so that's all positive, and everything's moving forward as well as we can hope. So yes, the completion date is still scheduled for mid-August. I would say that the actual demolition of the structure should be more in line with kind of mid-July, because there is allowances within the contract, obviously, for tidying up the site and some elements of landscaping thereafter. So yeah, it's going according to plan, and I hope it carries on that way. One more scheduled overnight crane lift, and I think it's a week on Friday, and that should take down these major beams. So I'll keep everyone advised on progress. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Simon. Okay, colleagues, is that everything on the alternative delivery models? Okay, so the Treasury. I jumped. People. Amanda.
Capital for Simon. 77.
Page 77, thanks, Eddie. We'll take the break after Easter, so preferred, by the way. Simon, Capital.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Good morning, members. Capital programme still continues to face ongoing pressures around affordability due to construction inflation and the cost of borrowing. We are closely monitoring projects to ensure essential scopes aligned with affordability caps. As usual, I won't go through the report in great detail, but I'll highlight some key points for a selection of projects. There's approximately £10 million of construction contracts currently on site. This includes the Galston Library and Office project, which is well advanced, with the building now wind and watertight and internal works ongoing. The St Sophia's Primary School Ennerfit refurbishment, which is nearing completion, with pupils planned to return for the new term in August. And as we've just talked about, the Kilmarnock multi-storey car park demolition, which has faced a number of challenges, which has impacted on the programme, but scheduled to be completed mid-August. Projects at a detailed design stage include Kilmores Primary School, where tenders to replace the existing dining hall and kitchen were issued mid-May. They are due to be returned late June, with works planned to start later in the summer. At Stuart Academy, technical designs are well advanced for construction of the new extension and internal alterations, with tenders due to be issued over the summer. And with the Palace Theatre as part of Cultural Kilmarnock, works progressing with external consultants and preferred contractor to reach a final commercial position to allow a contract to be awarded. This has been a particularly challenging project and a challenging process, given the technically complex nature of refurbishing this historic building, along with the levels of construction inflation that we're seeing at the moment. These challenges have been reported through previous East Ayrshire performance reports, and there is a separate, more detailed report on the project that will be presented to members later this morning. Moving to projects at the earlier stages of development, these include the Ayrshire Engineering Park and Ayrshire Manufacturing Investment Corridor, where tenders for Phase 1 infrastructure works are due to be returned later this month. It's anticipated a contract could be awarded in August, with a start on site by the autumn. With Doon Valley Community Campus, works commenced on the development of revised proposals for refurbishment and extension of the existing school, and it's expected that the first phase of works to upgrade areas in the leisure centre could start on site this autumn. At the Galleon Centre, a programme and cost plan have now been issued by the delivery partner Alliance Leisure, with formal appointment expected in the near future, and the programme will be based on maintaining an operational facility, and its expected works could commence during 2026 with completion in 2027. So thanks, Chair. That's just a kind of quick overview of some of the projects, but happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Simon. Members, any questions? Drew, Barry.
Thanks, Chair. Simon, I'm just wondering, it's good to see that the works are going to start in the leisure facilities at Duna Academy. I'm just wondering what's going to happen to the staff when it's closed, and how long do you think and anticipate that the works will take?
Thanks. Through you, Chair. I'm not as close to the detail of that, and I can certainly come back to you, Councillor Filson, with that. I know that we have had significant discussions with the school and the staff to try and limit any disruption, but I'll get some more detail on what the actual project scope is and how we're going to implement that and come back to you.
That's fine, Simon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Leader. Just a couple of questions, Simon, on St Sophia's. I note that the total project budget was 5.8, forecast is 6 million. We say in the text, though, that it's estimated costs being higher than the available budget. I take it that is the £200,000. I note that there is a photo call at St Sophia's coming up soon for, I think it's a time capsule, isn't it, that they're looking to bury there. I just wondered if members would be able to have a look round the school, given the nature of this building with the Inner Fit project. It would be really interesting to see. In terms of page 79, Willowbank ASN, that there's a more detailed report to come forward to Cabinet for consideration in the near future. Just if we can put a bit more meat in the bones in terms of when the near future is. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks to you, Chair. Yes, at the moment we are reviewing the finances for St Sophia's. In terms of the final costs, we do anticipate that it will be higher, and we are kind of going through that process with the main contractor just now. We've not kind of reached a final account position. So once we've completed that assessment, we will be able to kind of report to members on just what that final financial position will be. In terms of visiting the school, I'm sure that would be, we can arrange that. At the moment, it is actually extremely busy on site as they push towards a final completion. So if I can take that away and discuss with our education colleagues, and we can arrange a convenient time to visit the premises. And I think there was another question that I've perhaps missed. Apologies. Timescales for completion of the project.
Sorry, Leader, through you. In terms of the Willowbank ASN, the paper saying that, that will be a report coming to Cabinet in the near future, is just when that is. And just whilst I've got you, if you don't mind just coming back on St Sophia's, I understand that that's to be finalised in terms of cost, but are you anticipating that's £200,000 when you look at the table on page 78? Is that what we're thinking? That's the cost?
Yeah, thanks to you, Chair. Apologies. Yes, that at the moment that is the projection, and we're working with the contractor to agree a final position that we can then report on. In terms of the ASN paper, I understand that is going to Cabinet in the near future. I'm just looking at my notes here. I think it's the 18th of June.
So, Eddie.
So just for clarity, I mean, obviously, that's about our model of supporting children with additional support needs, and clearly the capital programme follows on once we're clear about the model. So that's what will come forward at that time.
Elliot.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to take the opportunity to request an update from Simon for Ward 2 elected members on the summer programme for the work that's going to get done on Thank SLC and the toilet refurbishment there. I know Simon's gave us some updates in the past, but as we're hurtling towards the end of the school term, I'm sure the education colleagues will be pleased to note that. It'd be useful just to get a wee update before that work commences during the summer. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks through you, Chair. So we have awarded a tender to carry out the second phase of toilet alterations within the supported learning centre at Onthank. So that work is scheduled to commence just when the school breaks for the summer break and be completed before the new term. We're also going to be finishing the final phase of landscaping works to the external area as well over the summer period, so that will be undertaken also.
Just add a wee question, just in terms of River Irvine stabilisation at the back of the AAA. You know, I walked around there last month, and it's getting, you know, it's getting closer and closer to the facility there. And I just wonder, you know, we're saying here that it may take place in 2026. The costs are just going to increase the longer we delay this, you know, and just we absolutely don't want you doing that would risk that facility there. Simon.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's a complex one, this, a very technical engineering solution. We're working closely with consultants to develop what's the most optimum solution for it. And it's made all the harder because we have to seek approval through SEPA, the Rivers Trust, other bodies in relation to when we can actually undertake the works. So that these detailed designs are getting taken forward just now. That's why it's suggesting it would be summer of next year, because it's to coincide with fish spawning seasons and the like. But in the interim, there is monitoring that's happening at the AAA and at the riverbank there, which is constantly being checked. And it's not showing any sort of significant movement that would cause significant concern. So ongoing checks carrying on, and we'll keep pushing to get the solution and the agreements in place to carry out the work as quickly as we can.
Okay, thanks, Simon. Okay, anyone else? Okay, we're now on to people. Amanda.
Thanks, Chair, and morning, members. People pages within the summary report start on page 83, with the absence statistics being on page 84. The incidences of absence have decreased for the same period last year, but noting the workdays lost had increased and therefore has resulted in a rise of 0.43 workdays lost. The top 5 reasons for absence in year 23-24 and 24-25 for reasons 1 to 4 remain identical. Personal stress being the top, musculoskeletal, operations recovery, stomach or abdominal. This year in 5th was stress, work related, and last year was colds and flus. The short-term absence, working days lost compared to the same period last year has increased an equivalent of 3.68. We're currently doing a deep dive into the statistics to see what the patterns are and what way to best address this. The long-term absences compared to the same period last year have decreased 0.325. We now have tight action plans in place for all employees who are in long-term absence, and hopefully this is a result of tightening this measure up. Occupational health activity on page 85. As members know, we changed provider earlier in the year, which meant a decrease in some of the appointments. Also linked to that directly, as we've brought in the pilot for early intervention, we've brought that in-house rather than being done by our occupational health provider. Page 87, members will see the breakdown of jobs and training funds. As at 31st of March, there was 108 young people in post, which was an increase in 2 in the last period. The programme of recruiting towards jobs and training phase 1 ended in the 31st of March 2025, with a number of young people still in post, seeing their apprenticeships through. But at that date, 41% of the recruits had moved into positive destinations. We continue to monitor these young people and tracking those that are, by tracking those that are still in post, and continue with the new round of jobs and training too, with the bids for the next 3 years currently going through approval processes and advertisement. Page 88 details the numbers of leavers in the council, shows a decrease. In addition to that information, I would just note for members that over the year, over the 12 periods, 23 employees left the council services in the grounds of ill health and 22 in the grounds of capability due to ill health. Payroll activities on page 88 and overview of communications in 89, and also OD key performance indicators on 89 and 90. And I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Colleagues, any comments, questions? Good to see the number of apprenticeships and internees, and it's absolutely fantastic what we're doing there. Okay, thanks, Amanda. Health and safety, Davy.
Thanks, Chair, and good afternoon, members. The Health and Safety Performance Report in front of you covers the years 24-25. And if I could start drawing members' attention to the top of page 92, the summary report noted that there was 2,499 non-reportable incidents that have come through to the health and safety team. That's a reduction of 107 incidents when compared to years 23-24, while incidents reported to HSE have increased slightly by 4 over that same period. They've advised the last 3 East Ayrshire Perform reports to Cabinet Chair. The decrease in non-reportable incidents is mainly due to a decrease in the number of incidents of violence and aggression in educational establishments. That's gone down by 239 incidents when compared to year 23-24, as can be seen at the bottom of page 93. It's reassuring to note, Chair, that we've seen a consistent reduction in violence and aggression reported in educational settings since period 3. And I should also point out that the reduction in reporting is modest over the year, but it is consistent. Had it been significant and abrupt, I'd be more concerned about possible underreporting, but I don't believe that that's the case here, Chair, and I think it's a welcome continuation of that downward figure of reporting. Moving on, but staying at the bottom of page 93, it be noted that the number of days to report an incident to health and safety was 3.2 days on average over the year, and that's well within the 5-day target. Finally, set out on page 51 of the covering report, there were a total of 3,954 unannounced inspections to our higher risk activities. That works out at 329 inspections each month, Chair, and it forms a cornerstone of the robust safety management arrangements we have in place across the council, and particularly across our high risk activities. That concludes the health and safety report, Chair, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, David. Any questions, comments? Claire.
Just a very quick comment on page 92, and it's the location of non-reportable incidents. And I noticed that the service users home category, that's one I've missed before, I must admit, I hadn't noticed that. Is that a significant number, David, or is that a small number considering the amount of service users we have at home? Thank you.
Through you, Chair, apologies, I can't see that in the report. I'm just looking for it just now.
Apologies, bottom of page 92.
Bottom of page 92. Yeah, basically that's in relation to the number of incidents that we have, mainly within health and social care, Chair. We don't see a huge number of incidents in that sector, has to be said, but obviously the report's picking up in incidents that we do see coming through to us.
Simon. True.
Thanks, Chair. Just to thank David and his team for arranging this year's water safety training at Lockdown. We're expecting another 250 pupils this year, which is a great initiative. Did David know what schools is coming this year?
I think there's, through you, Chair, I think there's 9 schools in total coming this year. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but certainly Patton is there, Bellsbank are there, Dalmellington are going to be there. I think St Andrews are there as well. But we're going to have 9 primary schools in total attending this year. And this is, as Councillor Filson's pointed out, 250 pupils.
Thanks very much, David. And I've booked the sunshine for you.
We encourage some of the schools for the north to go down there as well. It's great facility, it's great. Okay. Complaints.
Thank you, Chair. And just to conclude the stage performance report, I'll take you quickly through the next 2 sections. Complaints begins page 95. It shows 132 complaints received during the full year, slightly down from the previous year, and during Q4, 32 complaints were closed off, and the paragraphs at the bottom of page 95 give details of both the stages at which they were closed off, and importantly gives a note of those 32 complaints had 9 learning points or improvement actions for services as listed. The number of days to respond to complaints is on page 96. It shows an improving position in terms of stage 2 and again learning further services there. And in terms of the risks, they begin on page 97. Happy to report no new risks have been added, no changes to existing risks. They've been through CMT for review, challenge and scrutiny. And Chair, that concludes the stage performance report. The recommendations for Cabinet today are in paragraph 3 at page 40.
Has got any questions? Okay, any risks? Any is that? Joe again? Is that just okay? So that concludes these sets of performance. Can we? There's recommendations there. Can we agree recommendations? Can I thank the education reps for their participation today? It's been a long meeting today, and maybe if we a wee break back here at 12:20 on the dot. Okay, it's not quite on the dot, 20 past, but it's close as we've been. Okay, thanks, members. I'll reconvene the meeting and just go to item 5, which is supporting sustainable liberation through a prison-based employability programme. Is Richard.
Thanks, Leader. Good afternoon again, members. Really pleased to bring this paper to you today. It's been developed over a significant period of time, and a wee bit of a backstory that I just want to share briefly with you. Leader, it goes back to a conversation that yourself, the then Provost Todd, and I had with Lorna Dalil, who's the Director of Recovery Enterprise Scotland. I know I'm delighted Lorna's in the room with us today. And at that meeting, we talked about the work that Recovery Enterprise Scotland does through Lorna's team in supporting the offenders within HMP Kilmarnock and in partnership with council services in terms of that piece of work. Lots at that time going on and continues to happen through the team in terms of supporting families, supporting individuals with mental health and well-being, integrating those individuals into the community upon liberation with things like helping managing finances, managing household bills, that whole mental health and well-being, food, cooking, etc. Housing of critical importance. The housing support that our team give in this space is exemplary. There's no individual leaves HMP Kilmarnock without an offer of accommodation should they require. And also the employability piece with a focus on supporting individuals who wish to engage in opportunities around self-employment and indeed with the private sector through apprenticeships. We then went on a number of visits. Lorna took me into the prison. We walked around the prison and spoke to staff, and it became really apparent that there was an opportunity as we transitioned, as the prison service transitioned from Serco into Scottish Prison Service, to reset and look at training and development for offenders within the prison themselves. Where there's a number of sheds that are available for those purposes that were underutilised is probably the best way of putting it. And real opportunities we felt aligned with some council services particularly around the trades, where we have opportunities within carpentry, plumbing, electrician, builders, both within housing and indeed elements within ARA. We have the roads programme in ARA. We have horticultural opportunities within greener communities, some opportunities within our catering team, and there's a training kitchen within the prison, and indeed fleet services as well. So we started discussions with the Governor about how we can work more effectively together around opportunities to better prepare individuals within the prison setting for a more successful liberation, predominantly on the basis that numbers of people that were entering the prison and indeed those that were reoffending remained significant. And not only is that an impact on the individuals, and not forgetting members that these individuals are members of our community, but also the impact on services, on council services and on public sector services as a whole in terms of the cost and resource. So we've developed what we've termed as a sort of a prison-based employability programme, a 4-year prison employee-based programme around HMP Kilmarnock aimed at supporting people in custody and transitioning into meaningful employment, providing that programme as presented in the paper in terms of Fresh Start as a new opportunity for those individuals who embark upon training and development with us through engagement with Lorna's team in terms of the assessment model to take training at VQ qualifications and other relevant training opportunities whilst they're in that prison setting, and then supporting them through that transition into what we hope there will be successful liberation thereafter, building on what's already there, working with housing colleagues, employability colleagues and colleagues within social work services and the recovery enterprise staff to ensure that that's a smooth transition with these enhanced opportunities through work within the council that will be in addition to our already successful apprenticeship programme that's managed through Amanda's team. So, as I say, the report highlights that collaborative approach. And I'm really pleased that the Recovery Enterprise Scotland are with us in this space. Their relationship with colleagues within the prison setting and their significant credibility, I'm sure will ensure that this programme's a success and we'll work collaboratively moving forward. But as I say, Lorna's here, and between us, we're happy to take questions from members through you, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate it. It's good to see Lorna here today, and remember that afternoon really well. It's just what a busy job there is to do, and it's how people on release from prison, it's just quite overwhelming landscape they've got to face. And if we can help people into recovery and help people into no reoffending and get them economically active in the community and having worthwhile lives, that hopefully can go a long way, and I think this report does that to quite an extent. But I don't think we appreciate just the significant challenges that are faced. Colleagues, any comments? Elaine?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to support the recommendations in the report. When I was actually reading the report, when I got to paragraph 68, which is on page 128, and it talks about the outcomes, the second bullet is saying that we're hoping to reduce the reoffending by 50%. From my kind of uneducated in this sort of arena, I thought 50, but that sounds quite a stretched target. So when you go further into the report, it was really useful to have the appendix there, which talks about the individual placement and support model. And I think, as Richard highlighted, that is really crucial to the success of this. Because if we just do the employment part, that's not enough. There needs to be that wraparound. And obviously it would be transformational for the individuals, but obviously, as Richard pointed out in his narrative, there's the wider community benefits that we would get from here. So I think just stressing to colleagues about it has to be that real joined up approach. One question I do have though is, obviously it's not really, it's a sort of a refresh, a reintegration of an existing programme that was there with obviously this different focus, but how will we get updates and reporting on this? For me, it feels like perhaps bits with the community planning partnership mechanism. So where would the updates and the reports come, and how are we going to track over the 4-year programme if it's been successful, rather than wait to 4 years and find out what the results are?
Through you, Leader. No, thanks for the question, Councillor Cowan. And certainly there'll obviously be mechanisms internally between ourselves and Recovery Enterprise in terms of that close working relationship, in terms of ensuring that IPS model, that collaborative works, and indeed then the monitoring of the numbers as per the agreement. In terms of reporting back to elected members, I think there is a link to that wider to community planning setting. So I'll have a conversation with Ian in that space. But equally, happy to bring regular reports back to Cabinet in terms of how how the programme is progressing. And Lorna's nodding in the background, and quite happy to keep members up to date. And I'm sure Lorna would be happy also, and to have members visit and talk a little bit about the programme as well. But maybe we can take it forward on that basis.
Thanks very much. I would absolutely commend that as well. It was just I got a wee eye opener, I've got to say, just in terms of what was involved. Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. Just to quickly come back, and I think the other community planning partners, it would be a useful dialogue for them and awareness for them to see that this work is going to be undertaken, and perhaps what they could actually help to support. Because I noticed in it there's like the 4 different pathways in the reports. It's not just the council, there's wider partnerships and businesses that are in the community. So anything we can do that maybe to cast that net a bit wider would be helpful.
Yeah, I agree there. That's a fair point. Anyone else? Neil?
That's just a question. In regard, previously we've talked about release. Prisoners being released on a Friday. I apologies if I'd missed it in the report itself. Obviously, there was difficulties in engaging and getting support for prisoners released when the services themselves maybe weren't available. So previously, I think it was agreed that would be looked at, and where possible, prisoners would be released midweek so that they could have access to the services required. Do we know if that's happened and how that has impacted on that availability of services?
Thanks, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Ingram. I'm going to defer to Lorna, if I may, in terms of the conversations that are happening in that space. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. They still are being released on a Friday. They are trying to reduce it at the moment, and there are still discussions going on. However, due to the support, our team actually work within HMP Kilmarnock, so we try to have everything sorted out. So if we do have the Friday releases, everything is in place, and we're organised for the person being liberated on the Friday, so we don't have to be running about at 5 o'clock to try and get everything sorted. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Neil.
Thanks for that. I know that it's a big ask from the recovery people as well, because they're the ones that are left to pick up the pieces when it's Friday releases. So thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Okay, if there's no other questions, it can just thanks for coming along, Lorna, and can we agree the recommendations? Okay, next item. This one. Was the annual business support report and F5G innovation regions update. David.
Just so happens my laptop freezes when I need it. So this report sets out the work that's been carried out by the business support teams over the last financial year, and it highlights the work that's been we're looking to take forward for this financial year, along with setting out the work that's been delivered through the UK's 5G Innovation Regions Fund, which secured £3.8 million for investment for Ayrshire. So the background is set out in paragraphs 3 through to 7, and that just highlights that the work that we've been undertaking aligns with all the relevant plans, plus including the Ayrshire Regional Economic Strategy and NSET. In terms of paragraph 8 through to 12, that sets out the delivery model, and where we have the initial business support team, which includes Business Gateway, working with alignment of partners across the region. We also have a service that we deliver in inward investment, and we have dedicated bespoke sector delivery for food and drink and tourism, along with digital. And we have, over the past 3 years, with the community wealth building team. In terms of paragraphs 13 through to 16, we set out the performance of the business support activities. And I would draw to your attention paragraph 14 when we highlight that we supported 242 new businesses in East Ayrshire, which was higher than the national average of 212. We've obviously in paragraph 15 highlight that we've dealt with 28 businesses were awarded last financial year grants through the Community Wealth Building Programme, and that has supported 129 businesses through the Green Climate Agenda. In terms of paragraphs 17 through to 22, we reported at the last Cabinet the Shared Prosperity Fund, and that just that paragraphs 17 through to 22 highlight the work that was carried out last financial year. In terms of the Community Wealth Building project, we are required to do under the growth deal a review. That review is set out in paragraph 23 through to 26, but overall that highlighted that we had dealt with 389 enterprises in East Ayrshire, and along with 54 new businesses under that specific programme. And one of the things also taken a raise was that programme really drilled into the work that we've been working with colleagues in procurement to help support businesses through procurement and economic development. And that was supported through the Community Wealth Building Officers. Paragraphs 27 through to 30 sets out the Net Zero Accelerator programme, which we jointly funded initially with Scottish Enterprise and Net Zero Nation. That programme was started in January 2023, but developed quite considerably, and we were successful in bringing forward 50 businesses within East Ayrshire that went through that programme. It was a 12-month programme and very successful, and paragraph 29 sets out that in terms of carbon reduction, it's identified that there's 14,500 tonnes of savings. We've also identified through that monitoring process that the company secured contracts up to a value of £37 million through that work, and it's also looked to create 100 jobs across the sectors. I would also draw to your attention paragraph 30, where that programme has been shortlisted as a finalist in the 2025 Local Government Chronicle Awards. In terms of the moving forward into this financial year, the table in paragraph 31 sets out the funding allocation we're taking forward, where we have dedicated funding there for the Be Ready and Go strategy programmes. We've also looking to take forward CapEx growth grants through UK Shared Prosperity Fund. We have through the Leaders Fund, a digital grant fund, which will target digital support to businesses, similar to what we're just about to talk about in terms of 5G, but helping smaller SMEs. And lastly, we're taking forward through the Climate Change Fund the continuation of the Net Zero Ready and Net Zero Business Grant and Energy Audit Programme. So that gives you an overview of the work that's carried out in this financial year. In terms of the 5G Innovation Region Fund, and through paragraph 42 to 55, set out there that you'll recall from previous cabinets that we had a grant allocation of initially £450,000 to deliver Project 3, which was helping SMEs, and we targeted through a bidding process 6 businesses within East Ayrshire. Those are set out in paragraphs 45, and there's detailed case studies that align along with that. Each business received a grant allocation 80%, and they supplied the additional 20%, and some of these were in the region of £100,000 projects. In terms of the programme itself, it's been very successful in each of the companies that we've been working with have identified significant efficiencies in their processes, and they now are working with advanced wireless connectivity to deliver their services. In terms of the next phase, we have Project 4, which we were allocated £150,000 to take forward to support leisure project, which we dedicated towards the Dean Castle and the country estate. Of that £150,000, we went through a procurement process and awarded to Vodafone, and they completed the contract within the time frame, completing it for the 31st of March. And now that provides the Dean Castle and country estate advanced wireless connectivity within the actual castle itself and the grounds. And so for external events such as we've had, where you used to see the vendor putting the card machine in the air to try to get a signal, that shouldn't be a problem going forward. Paragraph 53 sets out the money allocated through the 5G board of £300,000. That money was targeted towards working with University of West of Scotland and Ayrshire College. From that work, that we identified that there was significant work there for engineering and aviation activities through augmented reality and other 5G programmes that we've got 2 case studies set out in paragraph 53, which identifies the work that's ongoing. In terms of the overall programme for 5G, we did make a bid which to UK government to try to get a fund this financial year. We didn't get the full fund in terms of millions that we'd anticipated, but we did get some small amount of money that allows us to continue with to increase the digital ecosystem this financial year. And we are looking at a programme that will provide a digital accelerator to 6 businesses within the region. And we're just hopeful of being successful with some of the businesses in East Ayrshire. The whole programme has been a huge learning curve for all the business support team, and what we've done is we've utilised that knowledge and expertise that we've now gained, and that's getting cascaded into work that's been delivered within other businesses, and we're using as mentioned earlier, the Leaders Fund to help support the smaller businesses with that knowledge gained. So the implications are set out in the remaining report, but happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Thanks, David. Claire.
Thank you. I think this is an excellent report, and it showing how business and council can work together. I would just like to pull out one part in the community wealth building, and it's in paragraph 26. And it's interesting that procurement was often seen as a barrier, and the CWB officers have managed to break this down a bit and give it the personal touch and pull in the money. And I think that's just so important, because I know as a small business person myself, I'd never have dreamed of approaching the council. In retrospect, perhaps I could have. So yeah, I think this is an absolutely excellent report. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, through you, Chair. I mean, the work that the 3 officers have carried out has been groundbreaking, and that's, I think, set out in the regional report. We have had huge successes with the community wealth building team, and it did take us, if you remember, at the initial stage, it took us a period of time to get the right staff in place, but we were successful and got high quality staff, and we obviously the programmes came to an end, and we're looking about how we integrate that programme into the mainstream operations as our North and East and South Ayrshire councils. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Jim then too. Jim.
Thanks, Dougie. So in the 5G and innovation, I had the pleasure of going out to visit some of the businesses that were involved in that, and listening to the directors and the workforce about the impact that has with that 5G innovation being them. Then as far as delivery goes and efficiencies go, it's been absolutely, I mean, business changing for them to see the growth, the expansion, the time saved in real times, and storage space, being able to deliver that as opposed to travelling in miles. The growth, the potential growth, and not only seeing the 5G app to back of that growth, its business is expanding, and the work that the team does in there, facilitating that and looking at premises for them. So really encouraging, David, and thanks for both David and Mark in that visit.
Thanks. No, I 100% agree with that. Your visits we did with yourselves and Eddie too. I was really impressed. You just 5G didn't mean that much to me. Apart from, I thought Claire was going to mention not getting her strawberries because the card machine was there working at the Dean Castle, but no, that's as far as it went. But what it's doing really seriously for these businesses is quite significant, you know. So it's great to see that, and hopefully we can roll that programme out and maybe make other businesses aware of just how effective it is.
Yeah,
David?
Through you, Chair. The fact that the 6 businesses we went through, but there's also another 6 in North Ayrshire, but collectively we've got in a regional level 12 case studies. Those case studies cover a whole range of different sectors, and what we're doing is we're going to utilise all of those together to as key benchmarking for new business coming forward who are looking to advance. A lot of what we've all said about 5G is the unknown, and we were there as well at the beginning. You know, it's when you bid for something and you actually get it, and then you realise you have to deliver it. It can be quite daunting. But we've been there. We had really good partners. We've had a great digital ecosystem set up now in the region, and we'll help to work towards supporting, you know, the businesses right across the area to help with their investment. An investment that we're looking at through the, you know, obviously the Leaders Fund will help to tackle that to the smaller businesses, and we continue to look at how to bid into UK government for some of that innovation region funding for the next phase.
Drew?
Thanks, Chair. It was just to thank David and his team came for all the hard work. They keep me updated all along through the different months there. So, as I say, fantastic work. And the paper speaks for itself, basically, doesn't it? So, well done.
Okay. Listeners, any other comments? Can we just go back to the recommendations on page 138? Can we agree recommendations? Thank you. And now, good to move exclusion of press and public and ensure that the recording's finished. So, get a couple of seconds.